It is UFC 240 fight week. And what does that mean? Your favorite duo is back to break it down here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. That's right. We are the breakdown here to give you UFC 240 previews and predictions. My name is Max Friedman, trademark MMA. I'm joined as always by a man who needs little to no introduction, but he comes at you all the way in the Netherlands. Big Marcel Dorf. First and foremost, Big Marcel, happy belated 30th birthday. How did you celebrate yesterday?
Just with my family and some friends, man. I have a little bit of a bigger party on Saturday, but yeah, it was all right. A little bit hot over here, so not didn't do anything too crazy. But
Now that you're 30 years old, do you feel older and wiser? Do you feel like this week you're going 12-0 on your fight picks?
oh no, man. I mean, what is 30? Right? It's the gateway to 40, and before you know, you have a free bus pass. So, um,
Pretty soon you'll get that senior discount at some
yeah,
restaurants and movie theaters.
can't wait for it.
Well, as always, we are the breakdown on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. You can get this network wherever you find your podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud. Just hit that subscribe button. You'll get all the great shows, including the Not Safe for Work MMA show, MMA Yesterday, Between the Links, which is MMA's version of ESPN's Around the Horn. That's hosted by Mike Heck with the great Davidson Baker, Craig Allen, and Keith Schillen. All really fun show. And the brand new Sunday morning cornerman, the Sunday after UFC events. Keith Schillen, John Franklin break those things down, run it back, tell you what you missed out on, what's to look ahead to. All great shows on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, but none like the breakdown. That's right. We are the number one show on this network. But anyway, we got a big fight coming up this weekend. UFC 240 is headed your way on July 27th. That is at the Rogers Place Arena in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, headlined by a great UFC featherweight title fight between Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar. But hey, we don't just talk about the main events on this show. We go all the way top to bottom, every single fight. Big Marcel, looking back last week, before we get started here, an abysmal night for yours truly. 4-9 on the evening for UFC San Antonio. I know we've a lot of folks have beaten the nail on the head too many times about all the decisions on that card. But Big Marcel walked away 7-6, picked up a fight of the night bonus for Mario Bautista and Jinsu San. So nice job picking that bonus. That brings your total to 154 and 130 on the year. I'm at 163 and 121. Still trailing Big Marcel 22-20 in the bonuses, although I do have a lead 9-5 in the underdogs. Big Marcel 240 on deck. What are you most excited for?
What fight or just in total?
In total. Wait, if your birthday party is on Saturday, are you gonna watch the fights after?
I mean, the fights don't start until what's that? 12:30 over here. So yeah, I'm good, man.
Gotcha. Well, anyways, it
But
doesn't matter if you can't watch live. We know Big Marcel's going to be watching. We know he's watching every single fight. And we kick things off on the UFC Fight Pass prelims here in the U.S. with two debuting heavyweights. Giacomo Lemos taking on Tanner Boser. Boser is a -170 favorite. Lemos a +150 underdog. Boser probably a little bit more well-known and experienced of the newcomers in this one. He's 15-6-1. He's fought in ACB and M1. I was a little surprised to see him get signed, but he is 4-1-1 in his last six, with his only loss coming to fellow recent UFC signee Salim Gary Razulov. Don't know if I pronounced his first name correct, Salim Gary Razulov. Anyway, Lemos, Brazilian, 6-0, 30 years old, all finishes in his career. Big Marcel, two debuting heavyweights. What can the fans expect to see?
I think there will definitely a knockout in the first round, man. I got a feeling that is a typical debuting fight for both guys. Both guys want to show that they are worthy to be there. I think Tanner Boser is a better fighter, but I think he will adjust a little bit too much in the first round. I think he gets knocked out by Lemos. I'm taking Lemos, probably the underdog here. So yeah, I'm taking Lemos in this one, but I think most people will pick Tanner Boser, and if he does the things he has to do, he will probably win the fight. But I go for a little gamble here.
Big Marcel, hot take right away. I think Lemos is the better prospect here. But this is a step up in competition for him in only a seventh professional fight. UFC jitters. Tanner Bozier's been on a bigger stage before. I expect him to wear down with those veteran instincts and take it here. Also, late TKO for the bulldozer Tanner Bozier, third round. All right. Well, let's move things along here. We got a fight at welterweight, and I'm going to be honest, Big Marcel, we're going to break this thing down, but there's still a lot of time left for Eric Koch to pull out of this fight. Kyle Stewart takes on Eric Koch. Kyle Stewart is a minus 120 favorite. Eric Koch, even money underdog. Like I said, I'll be shocked if this fight actually happens for Eric Koch. The guy has had 4 fights in the last 5 years, only won one of them, and he's been out of action since January 2018. Was slated to compete at UFC Milwaukee last December against Dwight Grant, but Zach Otto ended up replacing him. And funny you should bring that up because Zach Otto actually went into fight camp the second he saw Eric Koch was booked at 170 for that card. He fully expected Koch to get hurt and pull out. Sure enough, he did. But this will be Koch's first official fight at 170, a guy who used to compete at 145. So interesting to watch there. Kyle Stewart, 11-2, lost his UFC debut on extremely short notice to Chance Rencounter, was submitted in the first round in a fight where he was a near 2-1 favorite. Solid wins on his resume, but can he get it done at the highest level? Big Marcel, what do you got for us?
Yeah, man, it's difficult because listen, like you said, Eric Koch not very continually with his fighting. Kyle Stewart had a pretty tough debut against Chance Rencounter, but we saw Rencounter in his last fight, man, against Ismail Nordiev, and he completely dominated him on the ground, and not many people expected that. Only one of our crew members, Michael Duarte, who picked 12-0 on that card, which is crazy in International Fight Week.
That's unbelievable.
Shout out to him. Yeah, I think if Kyle gets his guns up, he will win this fight by unanimous decision.
What a pun right there. Get the guns up from Kyle Guns Up Stewart. I got him taking a unanimous decision as well. I just don't see it with Eric Koch anymore. I don't think he's there physically. I don't think he's there mentally. All right, well, headlining the Fight Pass prelims, this actually should be a fun fight. Jillian Robertson, the Canadian, she is a minus 130 favorite against the Brazilian Sarah Frota, plus 110 money line on her. Atleta, Sarah Frota, she's a finisher. 7 of 9 wins by finish, mostly knockouts and TKOs. 9-1 overall, 32. She took a split decision loss in her UFC debut to Olivia Renata Souza at strawweight. Badly missed weight in that one. Now back up to her more natural weight class at 125. Robertson, meanwhile, putting on a nice little streak here in her UFC career. 3-1 thus far with 3 submission wins. She did get submitted at one point by Myra Bueno Silva. She's 24, trains an American top team. Hard to tell in this one, Big Marcel. Where are you at?
Yeah, man, I'm really in doubt about this one, and I'm going back and forth. I think many people see Jillian Robertson probably as the favorite, but I think Sarah Frodo is too strong for her, and her BJJ is very strong, as we all know. We saw Gillian Robertson getting caught against Mayra Bueno Silva in her only loss so far in the UFC. And I think Froda is better, even maybe on the ground than her. We saw Froda getting a split decision loss against Livia Renata Souza, which was a close fight. I think Souza won deservingly. But, man, I think many people will pick Robertson, but I gotta go with Frota on this one. I think she will control the ground game, although Robertson isn't too shabby herself on the ground. But yeah, Frota, unanimous decision win over 3 rounds.
So, Jillian Robertson on a roll, really fun. I think she's growing in front of our eyes, but this is not a good matchup for her. I like Frota too. I think Frota's going to push that aggressive pace, and I think she gets her out of there in the first round with a TKO. Give me Sarah Frota headlining the UFC Fight Pass prelims with a first-round finish and her first UFC win. All right, well, we head to the televised prelims. kicking things off, we got ranked flyweights. Something you never know what's going to show up in the flyweight rankings every week. But
This fight should
Davison,
be on pay-per-view, just for the record. This fight should be on pay-per-view, no doubt.
I agree. And this is going to be a fun one. Yet it is the first bout on the televised prelims. Number 4 ranked Davison Figueiredo taking on number 3 Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja a slight minus 125 favorite. Figueiredo plus 105 on the betting line there. He is 15-1, 4-1 on the UFC, coming off that first UFC loss, dropping it to Jussier Formiga, a fight that you and I both picked correctly as an underdog. Formiga cash there. Pantoja, meanwhile, 3 years his junior at 29, 21-3 overall, 5-1 in the UFC. Perhaps putting together his best work right now. 3-fight winning streak with back-to-back first-round finishes. Big Marcel, Pantoja is on a roll right now. Does he keep it moving?
It's actually it's a tough pick, but if something happens, it's an easy pick. I think if Pantoja gets Davison to the ground, he will win the fight, because we all saw Davison against Formiga. Formiga's world class, we all know that. But also against Jared Brooks, man, I think he lost that fight, and even Davison said he lost that fight. So, I mean, Pantoja, we all know his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was very good, but he also liked to do the stand-up. I think he will lose in the stand-up game against Davison, but I think he's smart enough to take it to the ground and edge out a unanimous decision win in this one.
Yeah, not just the grappling where he is elite, but I like Pantoja on the feet too. This guy is really putting it together nicely. He's fearless out there. Has those 2 back-to-back first-round finishes. Absolutely staggered Wilson Hayes in that last fight. Give me Pantoja, unanimous decision. But I think a lot of this fight's going to be on the feet, and Pantoja is going to win those striking exchanges. All right, moving things up to 145 pounds. Gavin Tucker back in the UFC, taking on Sung-Woo Choi. Tucker is a minus 125 favorite despite not having competed since September of 2017. Choi is a plus 100, even money underdog. Tucker had that really one-sided beating loss to Rick Glenn. That was, as we mentioned, September 2017, a fight he was a big favorite in. Now he's 33 years old. He's got to look to get back on track here. That was his first pro loss. He did have a few fights that were scratched in between, important to note, so he has been in fight camp at times since then. Choi, meanwhile, made that UFC debut earlier this year, a losing effort to Movsar Evloev on short notice. 7-2, 4 first-round finishes on his resume. Hate the layoff for Tucker. Choi, meanwhile, put up a good, tough performance against Evloev. Not an easy feat, especially on short notice. Big Marcel, you like the returning Tucker to get it done in his home country, or is the South Korean going to walk away with an upset win?
Yeah, man. I mean, the referee in that Tucker against Glenn fight, he deserves to get a beating, honestly, man, what he did there. I mean, come on. That Tucker almost got, I think he got 4 headaches in that one. That was crazy. Yeah, man, I taking Tucker in this one. I think he's still a big talented fighter. And the Korean Choi, yeah, he did well on short notice against Movsar Evloev, but man, I don't see him beating Tucker, honestly. And maybe a fun thing that gave him Tucker, he went down to bantamweight and or to featherweight. What is it again? He wanted to go down to bantamweight, isn't it that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I believe it was a fight with Andre Sukumta that was booked and
yeah,
ended
true.
up
And
pulling out.
then he was actually supposed to fight Julio Arce earlier this year, and he pulled out of that one as well. And that was featherweight, and now he's back at featherweight. So actually, he didn't fight at featherweight in the UFC, I think. I think in Tucker in this one, man. Take a close decision, but it's not. It's a difficult one to pick because we haven't seen too much about from Choi. Yeah, maybe in the Asian on the Asian scene, but not with the. Why do you say that? With the better opposition so far, besides Movsar Evloev.
I'm actually going to go the other way. I'm taking Choi. I think he's gonna be a little bit more improved in his second outing, which I liked what I saw out of him, honestly, in that first round against Evloev. So give me Choi, split decision. I just don't like the layoff and the return from Tucker. But hey, we've seen fighters come back from bad beatings better than ever, and we've seen them kind of timid. So it could be one way, it could go the other. Sticking around at 145, this next fight should be fun despite the odds. Hakeem Dawodu is a minus 380 favorite against the debuting Japanese Yoshinori Horii, plus 315 underdog there. Dawodu, we knew, one of those most hyped prospect signings in recent years, but needless to say, the UFC career not quite matched the hype thus far, despite he is being 2-1. Has won back-to-back fights, both via decision. Touted with his striking. We know he trains at TriStar. Horii, meanwhile, an interesting prospect in his own right. He's only 24. He's from Japan, 8-1, back-to-back wins, both finishes in those. Has fought 9 fights in the Pancrase organization. Seems to have really good power in his hands. And his only loss is to UFC vet Issei Tamura. Kind of mixed success for Tamura ever since being released from the UFC. But man, is it just me, or can Horii surprise everyone with a big punch here? Big Marcel, what do you think?
Man, I mean, yeah, Hakeem Dawodu, it's Mr. No Expression when the camera's on him against Yoshinori Horii. I think this is a favorable fight for Dawodu, man. I think Horii is a good fighter. I like what I saw from him in Pancrase, but I think the UFC tries to set them up here against Dawodu because they want to build Dawodu. I think that's how they think. I don't think that's when it go that easy. But I see Dawodu winning the fight by unanimous decision. But man, I think Horii is a fun fighter, and I think we will see him back after this one. But both very on short notice booked fight, man. I don't know why, because when was this booked? 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. Both guys didn't know before.
Really?
Yeah, this is not long booked, man. Let's see when this was booked.
Interesting. I guess I hadn't realized that. But yeah, Horii could surprise everyone, I think, with a big punch. But I'm going to take Dawodu here, having the UFC experience. But I don't think he finishes Horii. I think he gets a decision win.
20
Man,
days.
20 days ago, still, yeah, 20 only. That's less than 3 weeks' notice for a fight. But man, keep an eye on those gas tanks in this one. And how do you see him getting it done, Big Marcel? Decision?
Yeah, UD unanimous decision.
All right. Well, headlining the televised prelims is a bout with ranked fighters, although ranked in different weight classes currently. Number 7, Alexis Davis at flyweight. She takes on the number 15 ranked bantamweight Viviane Araujo. Minus 250 favorite is Araujo. Comeback on the alligator, Alexis Davis, plus 210. Remember, at one point in time, Alexis Davis challenged for the UFC bantamweight title. Granted, she didn't last very long in that matchup, but she's a veteran of the sport. A lot of people thought she was reinvented at 125, but she has lost back-to-back fights now, so a little bit of a rough stretch. Might be on the hot seat here. We don't know. And now she gets a fighter who arguably had the most impressive UFC debut this year to date. I mean, Ismail Nardiev, very impressive. Michelle Pereira, very impressive. But if you're asking me, Viviane Araujo on 5 days' notice looked phenomenal in her third round knockout win over Talita Bernardo earlier this year. Are we buying into the Viviane Araujo hype right now, Big Marcel? 7-1. What do you think?
Man, she starches Bernardo, man, and you barely see that in women divisions. That besides the top 3 or top 5, somebody gets starched, man, by the other. It was a very impressive debut. It's actually, she's normally a strawweight, man, and she went up to bantamweight for that fight, and now she's in the flyweight division. It's maybe better for her. Man, Alexis Davis is always tough, man, but I'm just not sold on her for some reason. I've never been. It's always like going forward, going crazy, totally bruised up, and losing a split decision or winning a split decision. So I don't know, man. I think Araujo probably has to win to get the has to finish out to get the win there, because Davis will try to make it nasty, and then it will be close, and then probably goes to Davis. But hey, man, I like to gamble, so taking Araujo by TKO in the 3rd round.
I'm also buying into the Araujo hype. I think she's here. She has arrived, and she is very skilled. I believe she comes from the same gym in Brazil that produced both Gilbert Burns and Vicente Luque prior to them heading to the
Serrado,
U.S. What?
Serrado or something. Serrado.
Yeah, Serrato. Yeah. prior to them heading to now with Hard Knocks 365. But give me Araujo decision victory. But Alexis Davis, never an easy out. She'll go hard 15 minutes, and she's always searching for those submission holds, whether it's from her back or from the top, wherever she is.
I agree, man.
Pay-per-view main card time, and we kick things off with middleweights. Chris Jotko taking on Canada's own Marc-Andre Barriault. Jotko out of Poland is a minus 165 favorite. Barriault is a plus 145 underdog. Jotko, he snapped his 3-fight losing streak this past April. Absolutely dominant over Alan Amadovsky from bell to bell. Now he's at ATT. I almost said AT&T, like the phone company. 20-4 overall, and only 29, despite having 11 UFC appearances before his 30th birthday. How about that? Power bar Marc-Andre Barriault, 11-2 overall, 0-1 in the UFC. Had that loss to Andrew Sanchez in his debut. That snapped an 8-fight win streak. Really didn't show a strong ability to stop a takedown in that fight. And if you're asking me, Chris Jotko is going to exploit that hole right away en route to a decision victory. I'm taking him here. Big Marcel, break this one down for us at 185.
Nothing to add, man. Basically the same thing. Jotko will take him down and try to control him for 3 rounds and get the unanimous decision win. Let's say this, man. If they put this card in the US somewhere, people would riot. If this the pay-per-view they put in the US, people would riot 100%.
Oh, they would riot. I thought you were going to say they would write, and then you didn't answer. They would write.
I mean,
blank.
let's break it down. First fight. No disrespect to any guys, but shouldn't be on the main card.
There's about 5 fights on these prelims that I would rather see on the pay-per-view main card than this one.
The second fight, I understand Olivier Aubin-Mercier on the main card, and Tsarukyan did very well, but who did saw that fight from the normal MMA fan besides the hardcores between Islam Makhachev and Tsarukyan? I don't know. I don't think many people, because that was a co-main event in, was it Prague, I think?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And that was through the day or early morning in the US, so not many people saw that. Only the hardcores watched it back, and they should, because it was the fight of the night. And then you got, I think the third fight is probably the most intriguing fight of the whole card, in my opinion. Fourth fight, fifth fight is fun, but I'm going too crazy now. But I don't think if the UFC put this one on in the US, you had many empty seats, I think.
Yeah, there has been some criticism about this card top to bottom, especially the 5-fight pay-per-view card. But you already mentioned it. Olivier Aubin-Mercier taking on Arman Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan is a minus 200 favorite. Comeback on Canada's own, the Muffin Man, Aubin-Mercier, plus 170. Big Marcel, you mentioned the Tsarukyan UFC debut. Was it in St. Petersburg or Prague? I'm going back.
I thought it was Prague, but I'm not sure. I can also be wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you kick things off in this one, because I know you're pretty high on Arman. Sorry, you can.
St. Petersburg it was, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, man, he's a good all-around fighter. I mean, before he went to the UFC, he defeated Takanori Sato. He defeated Junior Assunção and Felipe Oliveri. Just a very good fighter, stand up and on the ground, and is on the ground very technical. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, everybody knows him, I think, by now, but 2-fight losing streak, man, and doesn't look good for him in this one, I think. Again, very good wrestler, Tsarukyan, in my opinion, and Aubin-Mercier's strong thing is on the ground. I only think he TKOs Evan Dunham 2 years ago or something, or KO'd him. But he's getting better. But I think Tsarukyan has this one, and it's pretty painful, I think, because it's in Canada and he's the underdog. It doesn't happen many times to him. But I think Tsarukyan wins this one. I don't know how you see it, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. Olivier Aubin-Mercier stormed into those rankings and then has dropped back-to-back fights to Alex Hernandez and Gilbert Burns. Really wasn't competitive in either one of those. He is in dangerous territory of losing that third straight in the UFC's most populated division. Not a position you want to be in. Sorry to cut you off. What were you going to say?
Can we say best losing debut to this year or something for Arman Tsarukyan?
Great point. Something that no one ever talks about. Which fighter that didn't come up on the right end of the victory had the most impressive debut, and it's above and beyond Arman Tsarukyan.
Yeah, nobody
Uh,
gave him a shot before. Everybody was like, "Why has Islam Makhachev has to fight this guy?" And I remember we were saying here at the breakdown, like, this is not an easy fight for Islam Makhachev, and
no.
we saw it wasn't an easy fight.
And that was a much closer fight, if even if you watched it, than the minus 525 odds that they gave Islam Makhachev in that one. Granted, he came away with the victory. Fight of the night bonus on both ends, well deserved, and a high praise from the MMA community. But Arman Saryukian is sharp, and I don't see him getting dragged into Alban Mercier's game. He's equally as skilled there, I think, and I see him getting it done pretty much with ease and unanimous decision on his end. All right, Big Marcel, you alluded to it, but we got a welterweight fight, and this is the second I saw this fight get announced, I've been excited ever since. This is the fight I am looking forward to most on this card, and that's saying something given that Max Holloway is in the main event. Jeff Neal, hands of steel, taking on Nico Price, the hybrid. Neal is a minus 335 favorite. Price a plus 275 underdog, pretty sizable there, but man, there's a lot of buzz around Jeff Neal right now. 3-0 in the UFC thus far, besting Brian Camozzi, Frank Camacho, Bilal Muhammad. At one point, he was in the rankings at 170, but it really just seems like these days, whoever gets the most recent win is the person in that 14-15 slot in the rankings. But hey, another win here. He might be back in come next week. Fortis MMA constituent, heavy hands, great movement on the feet. Seems to be very athletic, can avoid the grappling exchanges pretty well. Price, meanwhile, extremely unorthodox. We know he left American Top Team to go and start Futures MMA. And while that might have been a head scratcher on paper, he's 2-0 with 2 knockouts since. Both of which in these fights he was badly behind, both to Randy Brown and Tim Means. He was behind in those fights, came out vicious knockouts. He finds a way to get it done. Big Marcel is a huge betting line. Jeff Neal, tons of hype on this one. But Nico Price, we know, never count him out. Let's hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, man, fun fight. We have to give an extra shout out to Farah Hanoun before breaking this one and making everybody's day. I think a few weeks ago. Um, yeah, Nico Price, like you said, he has knockouts in his hands, man. I mean, we saw in almost every fight he was in, which he won. He only got starched by Abdul Razak Al Hassan.
Yeah, submitted
Um,
by Vicente Luque too, but
yeah,
as far as exchanging on the feet, that was the only time he's really been outmatched fully.
exactly. But Jeff Neal, man, the guy is so technical, beautiful kicks, beautiful punches. For this MMA guy, he is so composed in the cage, man. Like Price can go a little bit crazy sometimes, but Neal always sticks to his game. And man, technically, I love his game, and I think Neal is going to win this one by a spectacular unanimous decision. A spectacular unanimous decision.
So, on paper, is this your pick? And maybe this is premature, but is this a fight of the night candidate? Just answer that.
It's my pick, 100%, man.
All right.
The only which one can be over this one is Edgar against Holloway if it's firework for 5 rounds, but otherwise
Yeah.
100% this one.
So you said it. Jeff Neal is flawless. He is extremely talented. I believe it was UFC, I want to say 218 or maybe 216, whatever it was in Dallas when he took on Frank Camacho. And Joe Rogan was just absolutely praising him the entire fight. He said, "This kid is good. This kid is going to be something special." He is. I mean, he's there. He is talented.
He's a pro, right?
He's a what?
Semi. He is also a waiter.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he's still doing it, but yeah, he was a full-time waiter. He really seems to click with head coach Saif Saud, and man, I see Neal landing that big left hand, if not a kick, something to set it up, but he puts away Nico Price second round.
Great. Can I give an extra shout out to Saif Saud, man? The guy is, dude, in his corner. He is so on point all the time with what he said, and he just speaks his mind, man. And I really like that in the corner. He's like, if somebody is behind, go for it, dude. You are not here to. He just says it how it is, and I think he should be praised a lot more.
Such a true professional. The body of work speaks for itself. This is a guy who should be considered for coach of the year, definitely last year, should be in the running again this year. I mean, just a true professional who is truly truly there to support his fighters, and there's fighters getting it done. Not there to be on TV, not there for the exposure. He is truly a coach that backs up his fighters, and with his extensive experience, he knows the game just as well as anyone else. Agree with your sentiment, man. Shout out to one of the best coaches in the game that doesn't get enough appreciation. That's for sure. It's co-main event time, and we got the former UFC Women's Featherweight Champion Chris Cyborg returning to the octagon. She takes on Felicia Spencer. Cyborg is a huge -650 favorite. Spencer +475 underdog in her home country. Cyborg, we know, the pioneer women's MMA, a physical specimen at 145. This is the last fight on her UFC contract. Spencer, meanwhile, former Invicta champion, made that successful UFC debut, choking out Megan Anderson, getting this co-main event slot a lot. Does it seem like a little too much too soon? Big Marcel, I want you to break this fight down, and then I want you to give us a hot take on what happens with Chris Cyborg next.
So this fight, like you said, Felicia Spencer came from Invicta, took a fight against Megan Anderson, and took her out by submission in the first round. Cyborg coming off that devastating knockout loss against Amanda Nunes last year. Man, in my opinion, it's hard to measure because Spencer took out Anderson so easily, but how good, and that's not to be disrespectful, but how good is Anderson actually? I haven't seen it so far in the UFC. She has 3 fights. She lost 2 against top competition, against Holm, against Spencer, and she won against Zingano by that toe in the eye or something. That's a horrible thing. But
I mean, it was less than 20 seconds of cage time. It's hard to really sell that performance.
It's so hard to say how good Anderson is, and that's which mean how good the victory from Spencer over Anderson is. That said, Cyborg, dude, I actually can't doubt her, man. She only lost to Nunes, and Nunes is on an absolute roll. She's destroying everybody. So I think if, for example, if Spencer does the same thing that Nunes did against Cyborg, she gets stars in the first 20 seconds, I think. She probably tries to take it to the ground. Cyborg has a very underrated ground game. Cyborg, for me, man, inside the distance. I don't know what. Probably a TKO in the second or first round.
Yeah. I can't see Felicia Spencer being able to handle that onslaught of Chris Cyborg. And if she does attempt those takedowns, you mentioned it, Chris Cyborg, great jiu-jitsu practitioner, really good in the wrestling, very underrated as far as her ground game goes. She gets it done in the first round as far as I'm concerned. Now, your take on Chris Cyborg. After this fight, do we see her back in the UFC? Do we see her go to another promotion? What's going to happen?
It depends what she wants, man. If she wants her title back at featherweight, we will see her back in the UFC. If the UFC doesn't give her another title chance against Nunes after she wins this fight, I don't think she will sign another contract with the UFC. And if she loses this one, she's probably gone, I think. But I think there are 3 options. She wins, she gets a title shot, she remains in the UFC. She wins, she doesn't get the title shot, she goes somewhere else, or she loses and she's gone. Those are my 3 options.
I see. Well, something to keep an eye on after Saturday night.
What are your?
I say, yeah, that's hard to tell. I think if her management can negotiate that title fight with Amanda Nunes, she's back.
Yeah.
If they can't guarantee that title fight, she walks. She goes and takes on Julia Budd in Bellator, or we see her in Ryzen maybe. We may see her somewhere else. We may see her in a WWE deal, but I think it's clear if that title fight's on the table, then she's sticking around. Main event time, and we got a very interesting fight to the top of the bill. Huh?
Finally.
A fight that has been talked about for many years. UFC featherweight title fight champion Max Holloway. Blessed Holloway is a -390 favorite against the number 4 ranked featherweight Frankie the Answer Edgar, +340 underdog is New Jersey's Edgar Holloway. Man, what else can you say about him? He's the true featherweight champion, one of the best fighters on the planet, pound for pound. Had that 13-fight win streak snapped at that failed bid at the UFC Interim Lightweight Championship in April to Dustin Poirier, but goes right back into camp after that grueling war. And finally, like you said, this fight is happening with Frankie Edgar. It's been talked about for years. Edgar, former UFC lightweight champion. This will be his third attempt at the UFC featherweight title. Both losses, though, came to Jose Aldo. Coming off a win over Cub Swanson and has won 3 of 4. Holloway, meanwhile, we said the 13-fight win streak just recently snapped, and he has not been beaten at featherweight since 2013 against Conor McGregor. So, Big Marcel, that on paper, everyone thinks it's a Holloway's fight to win, but Frankie Edgar, you can never count him out of anything. Always a competitive gamer. We'll give it 110%. What's going to happen in the main event?
Yeah, I always say about Frankie Edgar, he's that kid in school when everybody has a 7, he wants to have an 8, and that's a very good thing, for a fighter. Frankie Edgar is very, I think, very good on the ground and on the feet. His wrestling is top notch, as we all know. Man, as a long-time MMA fan, I would love to see Edgar win the title for the simple reason that I think he got the UFC did him dirty when they made Conor against Mendes. They should have made Conor against Frankie, in my opinion, back then. And Frankie was a lot younger back then, and now he's a little bit older. So I think it's more difficult. I think if it goes to the later rounds, I see Holloway winning this one. Although Frankie is very strong, I think he can hold the pace as well. So I don't see a walkover. I think it's a deserved title shot. What everybody say, I don't care. I think Edgar deserved the title shot against Holloway. Then he took the fight against Ortega, which he shouldn't have to do. He got knocked out, and then he got back and he won again. So it's hard for me to pick, but I take Holloway by unanimous decision. But I'm not sure. I think Frankie Edgar can be the spoiler for Max Holloway here, man. I think stylistically it will be a tough matchup for Holloway. But man, if it was 2-3 years back, I think I went with Edgar, but I think he's getting older. It's probably his last shot. I would love to see him win, but I think Holloway takes this.
Yeah, I can't see Max Holloway losing this fight. I know Frankie Edgar is one of the best of all time, but it just doesn't seem like Holloway can lose in this weight class. Holloway, 3rd round TKO. I think he's going to stumble him with something, and then that just volume onslaught that he's so good at, that we saw against Brian Ortega and Jose Aldo. That's what he finishes him with in the 3rd round. And still undisputed UFC featherweight champion Max Holloway. All right, Big Marcel, well, you gave us your fight of the night pick already, Jeff Neal and Nico Price. I'm going to give you one as well, and I'm taking Alexandre Pantoja and Davison Figueiredo for my fight of the night. I'll go first with performance of the night bonuses. Give me Jeff Neal and Chris Cyborg to walk away with those. Where are you at with the performance of the night bonuses?
Chris Cyborg, yeah, I take her as well. And we're taking Viviane Araujo.
Nice. Like that pick. All right, underdog of the night. Who you rocking with? Your options are Sarah Frota and Giacomo Lemos.
Then we're taking Sarah Frota.
And my only options are Frota and Sungwoo Choi. I am also going to go with Sarah Frota as my underdog pick. Lock is a little bit tougher on the evening, but give me Armin Saryukian to get it done over Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Big Marcel, where are you at with your lock of the evening?
That we really only have 2 underdog picks, both.
Yeah, we only had 2.
Bunch of scary bitches. Scared bitches, I mean. Yeah, who do I pick for my lock of the night? Let's go Cyborg. It's pretty lame. I think it's lame, but I do it.
Hey, it's a
one of those context for you, right?
All right, well, let's recap the picks. We are split on the first fight of the evening. I'm taking Tanner Bozier. Big Marcel's got Giacomo Lemos. Both taking Kyle Stewart to get it done over Eric Koch. Although my official prediction is that fight doesn't happen. I'm taking Sarah. We're both taking Sarah Frota to get it done over Jillian Robertson as an underdog, and she is actually both of our underdog picks of the evening. We're split on this next one. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we both have Alexandre Pantoja to get it done over Davis and Figueiredo. That is my pick for fight of the night. We are split on the next fight, though. Big Marcel taking the returning Gavin Tucker. I'm taking the South Korean Sungwoo Choi. Both taking Hakeem Dawodu over Yoshinori Hori. Both taking Viviane Araujo over Alexis Davis. That is one of Big Marcel's Performance of the Night bonus winners. Both have Chris Jotko over Marc-Andre Barrio. Both have Armin Saryukian over Olivier Aubin-Mercier. That is my lock pick of the evening. Both taking Jeff Neal over Nico Price. I have Jeff Neal winning a Performance of the Night bonus with a spectacular finish. Both taking Cyborg to finish Felicia Spencer. That is, both of us have a pick for Performance of the Night bonus on Cyborg. And in the main event of the evening, we are both taking Max Holloway to retain his title over Frankie Edgar. Big Marcel, final thoughts, feedback, UFC 240 on deck.
Let's see what's gonna happen, man. I don't know. I hope it's not so hot anymore here on Saturday. That's the only thing I hope. And yeah, let's see what's happening. There's a lot of MMA this weekend, man. Today are also two events, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah,
So,
some good cards on deck, right? I believe got a card with Brave coming up. We got the PFL tonight. Some good ones for sure.
I think Brave starts in 22 minutes from now. So yeah.
How do you watch that one? Is that on Fight
I don't,
TV?
no, I can just go to the Free Other Fighters website normally for free. But I don't know now.
Nice.
It's always different. So
Interesting. All right. Well, looking forward to seeing Bubba J in that one. Before we get out of here, Big Marcel, where can the people find and follow your great work?
MMADNA.nl, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and my own account, Big Marcel24, on Twitter and Instagram.
Big Marcel, you missed one, I believe, on Twitter. You missed one fight announcement where you only had it on Instagram, and I was looking at what happened here, and I'm trying. It was a women's fight that recently got announced, and now I'm blanking on what it was, but
Let's see what's recently got announced. We have Nadia Kassem against Yi Yoon
that
Kim.
that was it, and I didn't see it on your Twitter. I only saw it on your Instagram.
You sure?
No, I'm not sure, but I thought.
Let me check, because now I have to know, man. I have to know.
Anyway, you can find and follow me, Trademark MMA on Twitter. As always, subscribe to the Loudmouth MMA podcast network. And as Big Marcel holds his phone to the camera, correcting me that I was wrong, he did tweet it out in addition to Instagram. I should never question the great Big Marcel 24 social media. It's the best in the game as far as fight announcements goes.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next week for UFC New Jersey. Should be a good card. Colby Covington taking on Robbie Lawler in the main event there.
It's an afternoon card for you guys, right?
Yeah, afternoon card. Gotta love that. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We will see you next week.